The director, Marnie, is somebody who I've known now since I spent a brief stint living in New Orleans in 2015, and during that time I got to know a number of people, and she's one of the people I got to know. She happened to live like a block over from where I did, and so we kept in touch after I left there, and we just continued to be friends. And then she came up with this idea for this movie, which from my understanding was kind of very sort of improvised in a way. Like she had a relationship with those guys, all the SoundCloud rappers, but all those characters, they're people that she kind of grew up with, and she knew that they had sort of relocated out to Crestone, and she really wanted to just go and sort of shoot a kind of from the hip movie about their lives out there. And so she really just came to me with like, would you want to soundtrack my movie? The band was kind of on a bit of a hiatus at the time in general, and so there was a little bit of free time. Not really feeling like there was too many like band related projects, and Brian and I had already spent that kind of previous year, I guess, 2017. Is that right, Brian? I'm bad with dates.
2017, 2018.
Yeah, 2017 and 2018, we had already kind of gotten to do a couple of collaborations that were just the two of us, which was sort of a new thing. We had never really tried that combination before in any substantial way. So we kind of already had a little bit of a language going on and a dialogue musically, and it sort of just felt like it fit really well with this concept. And then there were certain things about the movie, less the SoundCloud part, and I'll let Brian speak this because this is a big point for him, but the relationship to the desert as a environment to relate to sonically was really appealing.
In the early 2000s, when I did environmental science and policy, I lived at the Biosphere Center, which is outside of Tucson. So I spent about a year and a half living in the desert and really fell in love with it, and have had vague sounds in my head since then, and no Animal Collective project has ever really been able to bring them out. And when Josh asked me to do this, and he mentioned he wanted to focus on the piano playing that he'd been doing in our live sets, and I saw the imagery, and I thought those two elements will guide me to a place where I won't just be like, where I can explore those ideas of this, my own kind of desert sound without being too influenced by other records or other scores that would just lead me to ripping them off, essentially. So once I saw that, saw the landscapes that we would be scoring to, and also the kind of colorful characters and the juxtaposition, so it wouldn't just be like a straight Western, cosmic Western feel, it'd be something a little bit different. But then I was all in, from that point on.
But I think we really wanted to kind of highlight that the sort of craziness of these SoundCloud rappers that you wouldn't necessarily associate with that environment, and then these epic drone shots of the desert and the mountains and the dunes and all the things that don't come through in their SoundCloud music.
In a way, I feel like the sounds we made are representative of that juxtaposition too. Even when you hear organic or acoustic instruments like Josh's piano, it's usually fed through my modular synthesizer to make sure that it had this more of a granular texture to it, which at the time I think we were it should sound more like the Stones or the texture of the desert. But again, towards the end of the project, I started to see this this link between, and this, well, to back up, and even some of the twangy guitar sounds are not guitar. Josh plays some guitar on the score, but there's not that much of it on there, so I was always looking for ways of how can I interact with this, and as if I'm a steel guitar player, but I don't know how to play it. So I'll try and fake it with oscillators or something. That method, I think, it works in parallel with the visuals of seeing these guys set against that backdrop. I don't even think we took advantage of like the internet in the way that we could have when it happened, MySpace or whatever. We just weren't very active on that. I mean, it took us like 15 years to get a homepage set up. So, I'd like to think we would, like we like SoundCloud now and we talk about using it a lot. Like Dave and I have this new psychoactives project, which is like something that we try and keep away from Animal Collective just for like contractual reasons. We just want it to be like free, and not like stick it into our master catalog that other people might have a say in. Not to make them sound like bad people, our record label, they're like fully aware of the project and give us a thumbs up and are like, more power to you, have fun. But we're still like not. I don't know. I don't know if we'd spend a whole lot of time thinking about marketing ourselves. You know what I mean? So like we don't, and I'm not sure like even with different tools we would. So I think we'd use it when we would have stuff to put out there like we do now. But I don't think we would be like trying to maximize the algorithm. Does that make sense? I don't know if you disagree, Josh. That's the way I think I would do. But
Yeah, no, I get really fatigued with like interactions with that stuff to a degree. I think sometimes I sort of admire and or kind of even fantasize about being like, oh, maybe I'll just start becoming one of those people that just like throws up jams like regularly on like SoundCloud or does like, like Instagram live stories where I'm like jamming, and maybe it'll happen, but my tolerance for it is I quickly hit a limit. So it's kind of hard to. I mean, I'm sure that would be different if I was 22 years old right now, but it's hard to kind of actually put myself in that place.
we were really, I mean, yeah, we were really close to. We had a lot of songs written. I think we were talking. We were like talking to recording studios about open dates, and I think we were expecting to be in a studio by like April or May of 2020, maybe June at the latest. So, and then just judging by like how quickly we work when we're in a studio, we thought we would have like had a record out already and like done a few tours if you talked to us a year ago. Um, but yeah, that slowed down, and even the possibility of like bubbling together couldn't happen because Noah lives in Portugal. Um, so yeah, it screeched everything to a halt. We put together that Bridge to Quiet EP, which was like primarily built off of practice space recordings that then we did overdubs on top of. So we felt like okay about that, but we were resistant for a while to the idea that we would make a completely remote record where it's like everybody does their parts, and there were certain songs that we knew we had to be in, like they're not played to a click track, they had to be played live. But we've pulled it together. It ended up being a lot more fun and than we thought it would. Still certain songs like we were like we're gonna save that for when we can be in a room together, but we yeah, we made a record and it's not done because decisions that could take 2 seconds if we were all in the same room have to require 4 emails and text many texts and things being sent across different time zones and whatever. So it's just slowed it down immensely. But we hope to have a record done relatively soon. It's very far along.
Yeah, it's. I mean, just to kind of answer the same thing with like just a another bent to it is just like it did hit us really hard, and there's reasons why, especially for this, because I mean, every record we would prefer to be together when we do it, but I think some records more than others really feel like they're meant to be off of the grid, and this record was very much like Noah behind a kit again. And the way that we like wrote and arranged the songs, we really felt like we wanted to have that kind of space where we could let things breathe and let tempos breathe basically, and not feel like we're locked to a click. So that was really hard. But that all being said, as difficult as this last year has been, the fact that we did pull off the Bridge to Quiet thing, and this record that we're working on now, as much as it's taking a bit longer for the reasons Brian's talking about, I actually am. It could have gone so poorly. Like we didn't know going into it if it would work. We've certainly like made things remotely before, but never on this scale. And to spend close to 4 months, I guess, with none of us seeing each other in person, working on songs that we already knew how the songs went, and for the most part the arrangements were already set, but of course inevitably things ended up changing, and just having a way to technically be able to build these songs that way and share files back and forth and continue to build and find ourselves the place that we have, which I think we're all really psyched about. It's actually kind of amazing.
I mean, like I said, there are certain sounds that I've wanted to explore and get out of my head for a while, and this is the first thing that really that allowed me to do it. And I'm really psyched that the era of, that Josh and I had of, that year of where I was in DC and he was in Baltimore, and these 2 or 3 projects came up, and we actually have more recordings of us playing together that we thought about releasing. But I'm glad that and we've just been too lazy or distracted to get around to them. But I'm psyched that there will be a record of that out there, and I don't really think it sounds like much else Animal Collective has done. We don't have too many purely instrumental records, and I guess this one technically isn't either, but it's close. Yeah, it's a new thing. The longer our career goes on, and people discover us when they're, if they're a teenager at this point, they've been alive less than the band's been around. So I remember discovering bands like Can or something, and I've said this before, I apologize for repeating myself to you guys, but it's when you discover a band when there's already a bulk of stuff. I remember when I first saw the Sun City Girls discography laid out in front of me, and everything is just decontextualized, and you're just well, I'll just dive in here, and you make your own relationship with the band based on what you discover when you discover it, and it's divorced from the linear trajectory of the band. And so as many different things as we can now, I feel we're a band now where there's just a lake to jump in, and as many different things as we can put in that lake, the better, as opposed to having to think about the next one and the next one, and not have the record label mentality of well, you're just building and building. I don't feel we're, I'm not interested anymore in that. It's just how many things can you just throw in the lake for people to find when they dive in. So I'm psyched this will be another thing that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I think for me, the relationship of Brian and I playing together, that part of it's really cool. And I think also just the getting to properly work on a soundtrack kind of opened up new pathways or something. I feel there's a relationship to working on a film score or movie score for someone else that I don't know if I've actually, it's these are the kind of things I don't ever think about consciously until we're being interviewed, but it's almost it removed a certain layer of ego or something from the process of making music, that felt really freeing or something. I really felt there were these moments where, rather than thinking about what I'm trying to write or what we're trying to make as a band, I felt these moments of just being oh, my job here is to be myself in the context of what this image is and what this person's trying to do. And it felt like it felt like it opened up a new pathway, and that's exciting. I mean, and I don't know whether that means doing more scores or not, but it just feels like a new sort of new terrain, which is cool. So